Yes. Sir.
You're good to go, sir.
Are we live
Am
now?
I using this one, Ryan? Okay, making sure. Yeah, looks like it.
We're live now?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
What's going on?
This is Councilman Victor Jones, Chairman of High Point, City High Point Public Safety Committee.
Good, thanks.
Here with me in the chambers are Councilman Britt Moore, Councilman Chris Williams, and Councilman Tyrone Johnson are unable to be here. Today on our agenda, due to some requests from several citizens about an ongoing issue, we've asked the police department to report on dirt bikes and ATVs in our streets. So our first item on the agenda will be item 2021-522, presentation of dirt bikes, ATVs enforcement policy. And here today we have Police Chief Travis Stroud to present. Thank you.
All right, thank you, guys. We appreciate having us here. So you know who's with me. It's just Captain Pete Abernathy. He is the captain of our Adam team, was one of our first shift teams. Pete is specifically here, though, because prior to his promotion, he was our lieutenant of our traffic division. The problem we're getting ready to talk about here has been for us a couple of years in the making. This is not just new right now. We're jumping on it. We've been in these discussions for quite a while because this problem seems to come and go depending on the season is what it comes down to. But several things that are concerning to us. First off, I want to get this out pretty early that we agree this is a problem in the city. A lot of times citizens will complain about things or they'll get hyped up on stuff, and even from the subject matter expert, we may look at it from the police department side and we're like, maybe this isn't quite as big of a problem as you think it is. But we agree on this 100%. We think this is a problem. I think it's a quality of life issue for us, and I think it could get worse if people start to take action on their own, and that's what I'm worried about personally. So it is a problem for us, all right? That's the HPPD stance on this. You don't have to read these, but I pulled out two quotes that were sent to me from the minutes of City Council in the public speaking section on November the 1st from Mr. Diggs and Ms. Peel, both residents of High Point, where they expressed concern over the dirt bikes and ATVs and some interactions that they had in the city, like many of our citizens have had. And I thought these comments were pretty impactful because I think they were just the ones that were here speaking, but I think they're speaking on behalf of quite a few people, including our officers. Too. This is not something that we're very happy with at all. And, you know, in Mr. Diggs' statement, I specifically point out one of the things he says at the bottom. The High Point Police Department, they came out and investigated, but the officer told them that the current policies in place do not allow them to give chase in situations such as this, and then I underlined it, unless it involves a felony. He questioned the policing policies in place and questioned why they could not make an arrest or detain the individual. I'm going to circle back to that. That's why I underlined that. I'll come to a little bit slide a bit later. But we agree with their comments. I don't have any objections to what they said. I think they're 100% right. But those comments are impactful for us. And Pete, feel free to jump in at any time. He's got a lot of subject matter expertise in this area. Now, in that same meeting, Mayor Wagner addressed part of this. Some things that he said, I think even city manager chimed in for a second. I highlighted what she said. She is 100% exactly right. She explained that one of the reasons the policy is in place is to ensure that no further danger to the public is caused by engaging in a high-speed chase. That's chalked in and out of our policy, 3.1 police vehicle operations, which I pulled several pieces of to show you the wording that goes in there, because it is a safety one thing for us. This is probably one of our highest liability and impactful events to the city when we do engage in high-speed police pursuits. A lot of damage can come out on the other end. So we want to make sure we're doing it the right way and in the right time. So I think that's really the key is what the policy says. Mayor Wagner encouraged our residents that encounter situations such as this to get pictures or videos on their phones, which might be helpful for the police to identify these individuals. Yes, he is correct, but I'm going to sort of give a new path on that today with some things that we're trying to do. Now, I'm going to jump right into really the crux of what we're talking about. I think it's Mr. Diggs' comment in there that our policy doesn't allow us to do this. So I'm going to specifically talk about General Order 3.1, our police vehicle operations. The purpose of that, this is the very first line of our policy, to set forth policies and procedures concerning the safe operation of police vehicles and the safety of officers and citizens. That is priority one for us. We cannot engage in police work and endanger our citizens more if we can avoid it. Emergency vehicle operation does not relieve the police officer of the duty to drive with due regard for the safety of all persons using the roadway, nor does it protect the officer from the consequences of emergency driving. There's a myth out there that somehow we are under some cloak or blanket of protection that we can do whatever we want to. No, we cannot. We have to operate within the due regard and due safety for our public when we're driving and acting in anything, in any capacity, but especially when we're driving. Now, there are some safeguards for us that do allow us to run blue lights and siren, exceed the speed limit, violate other motor vehicle laws and things like that, so long as we're acting reasonably in the process. And that's the biggest thing with the policy. We want to be reasonable in what we're trying to do here. Now, when can we pursue? That's a big question. I think to the general public, there's probably a thing out there that a lot of people think we can just go after anybody for everything. Not true. Absolutely not true, and that's not the way I want it as the chief of police, and I don't think the industry standard would stand for that either. The initiation or continuation of a pursuit is permissible only when the officer knows or has reasonable grounds to believe that, number one, the suspect presents a clear and immediate threat to the safety of other persons, or, number two, when the necessity of immediate apprehension or investigation outweighs the level of danger created by the pursuit. That's it. That's the two things that we're looking at for us to pursue people out here. One of those two needs to exist. If both of them exist, then that's great. That's two the price of one in there. But one of these two is going to have to exist for us to get in there and pursue. Officers shall not initiate or shall suspend their involvement in any pursuit when, in the officer's opinion, the danger to the public or officer created by the pursuit exceeds the danger presented by the offender remaining at large. What we have to do when we're making action, we turn on blue lights and siren and we start to go. The officer's got to start thought process right then, saying, what do I have in front of me? How bad is the crime? And are we creating a greater danger by driving at high speeds, running red lights, whatever it may be? And you also got to account for what your offender is doing at the same time. Are we creating a greater danger to our innocent citizens in this process? A lot going on, a lot of stimuli coming at you at once. Blue lights, siren, high speeds, watching other traffic, trying to maintain control of your car, working your MBT. I could probably name 50 more things when it goes into high-speed driving. This is a stressful event for us. It's a high-impact event for us, and that's why we take it seriously. And this is one of our biggest policies. This one and our use of force policy are our two biggest. Now, specifically related to ATVs and dirt bikes, this is the line that's in our policy. Officers will not pursue motorcycles, mopeds, dirt bikes, ATVs, or similar vehicles, large trucks, buses, or motorhomes unless there is an immediate threat to the safety or well-being of any person and a supervisor specifically authorizes such pursuit. So, we do not want them going after dirt bikes, ATVs, and any other vehicles listed in there. You can go onto YouTube and watch video after video of any one of those vehicles that we just named, and there'll be tons of videos on it and the damage they incur to your city when you pursue them. So we want to try and avoid those things. But it is not a we will not chase them policy. Yeah, we can, and there are certain situations, if the situation presents itself where they are a true danger to our public and they're committing certain acts, then they can pursue, but I want our supervisors on the horn as a check and balance to give them permission to do that. That's two pieces. I want the officer making the assessment, and I want the supervisor who is not involved in the incident, who is not getting 1,000 pieces of stimuli put on top of them, to help make that check and balance statement. That goes for any pursuit, not just ATVs, buses, motorhomes, or anything. It could be a normal passenger car. We want that process to happen in there. That is the check and balance. It really keeps us, I guess, grounded. I mean, I don't know how many of you have driven in high speeds. You get tunnel vision, you lock in, you want to catch your bad guy, and we need a third party out there, a dad, mom, to say, hang on, we're not doing this, stop. And our guys or girls will stop. We generally follow orders pretty well, I think. So, a pursuit will be terminated when the danger to the public or officers created by the pursuit exceeds the danger presented by the offender remaining at large. This judgment must be made with the interest of public safety being the predominantly weighed factor. As you can see, I pulled several pieces of our general order, and every one of them, they may be worded different, but it's still the same thing. We want to be safe when we're doing these actions. We want the crime to fit the danger that we're creating to our public, because it is dangerous out there. Now, a couple of fact versus fiction I threw in here, because this is important for overall, not just dirt bikes and ATVs, but everything. HPPD policy prohibits pursuits. That is false. It's been long said that we have a non-pursuit policy or an anti-pursuit policy. That is not true. We have 40 pursuits entered in our documentation module this year. Anytime we have a pursuit, there's an extensive investigation goes with it, and we have a certain module in our computer system where we log in, and those investigations are tracked. So we've had 40 go this year. So 40 crimes fit the need for us to actually turn on our blue lights and siren and go after them at high speeds. Now, we have 65 terminated pursuits in 2021. These are documented through a different system, through our field sheets. We just put this in a little over a year ago. A little over a year ago. The predominant world of law enforcement altogether is resist first now, whether it be physically or anything else. That's what everybody does. You can't arrest me, you can't touch me, I'm going to fight you and go over there. It's the same thing in cars. We try to stop cars, and a lot of people want to run from I'm not stopping for the blue lights. I guess the respect for law has gone downhill in the last couple of years, and this is the result we get as a community. We've had 65 terminated pursuits in 2021. We saw so many cars running from us that really, after that, it was sort of done. We didn't have any documentation in place because we wouldn't pursue it. We just cut our blue lights on. It didn't meet the criteria for us to pursue. They'd take off, and then it was done. We turn our stuff on, and we go from there. So we wanted to start documenting how many terminated pursuits we were involved in as well. Historically, we chased a car once, probably a good chance we're going to do it again and again and again. That's historical data that we wanted to trap to help us come back on the back end and start investigations, and maybe we can identify offenders, owners of vehicles, and charge on the backside without a pursuit taking place. Yes, sir.
So Chief, just to clarify, you're just saying they flash on the lights, the guy takes off. When you say terminate, the officer terminated it for lack of danger versus risk.
Right, he doesn't meet the criteria.
Right.
Let's say we even stop him for just a traffic violation, speeding. That may not meet the criteria it doesn't meet the criteria that we need. Turn on blue lights, that car doesn't stop. We know they're not going to stop. We give people a chance because some people get confused. Some people want to get to a lighted area, all kinds of factors that go in there. Our policy clearly outlines those things. And we expect them not to chase. We expect them to turn their stuff off and put that in as a terminated pursuit. We're just not going to create the greater danger to the public to chase for those minor motor vehicle violations or some property crimes and things like that. It's just not worth it.
Don't you typically, prior to the lights going on, already have their tag information?
Yes. The correct procedure, we deal with this all the time, the correct procedure for calling out a traffic stop will be get all your information out on the radio prior to hitting your blue lights. Because once the blue lights go on, your situation could spin out of control in a matter of seconds. And that's not the time to get on I'm acting like I got a shoulder mic. It's not the time to get on the radio and start calling out tags and locations. So we want to give out immediately what we're stopping for. So motor vehicle violation, traffic stop, the location, the tag, vehicle description, and number of occupants. We want to get that all out on the radio so it's known, it's documented in the computer, then we hit our blue lights. So if things go south on us, you can just look at your MDT and see where people are. But if it goes bad from minute one and we don't have that stuff out there, we're behind the curve. So yes, you're correct.
Is there any recourse or something for someone that takes off like that? I mean, they just get away with it?
Unfortunately, yes.
Wow.
And that's where you grit your teeth. And I can't tell you how many grooves we have in our steering wheel that are handmade from getting frustration.
So you can't use the data if the case were, if you had the license plate number, the description of the car, and possibly dash cam video, you can't use that on the backside?
We can, we will. And a lot of those things do work out sometimes. I mean, I saw one, who was it this morning, sent their stuff out. It was Mears. Tried to stop a car. The guy ran from him. Luckily, he got a good look at the guy because he took off as he walked up to the car. We were able to identify that driver and come in on the backside and make charges. Okay. We just didn't get involved in a police pursuit on North Main Street at 8 p.m. As a result. So we didn't create a good danger to the public. Well, we got done what we needed to do. Now it's much harder. That's when you get in court, people plead not guilty. I mean, it's got to be beyond a reasonable doubt. So we got to have our ducks in a row to make these charges. But yes, we can, and we do. And sometimes we're pretty successful with it.
Yeah,
So,
really, when the officers, when we do this terminated pursuit, it's really to gather. It's a tool for us to gather as much of that data. As much of that data as we can, for that very purpose, so that we can go back. So now the officers got a description of the person, got at least a description of the car, where they were, when they were there, what action they were taking, what was the bad driving or circumstances, and a license plate, registration number. And then, once that person takes off, well, now the investigation will begin, and that officer, we can use, all the data points that we have and different databases, and go back and try to determine who the owner of the car is, which we certainly should have 99% of the time through DMV, and then go back beyond that and try to figure out who was that person driving, because it may not be the owner. It could be their child or parent or whatnot, or a friend, and try to determine who was operating the car, and then you can go back and make appropriate charges, which is what that tool is for. You know, that's why we do those terminated pursuits, because otherwise it would just, you know, if we don't enter anything, then it never happened, right? Because we live in a world where it's got to be documented or it didn't occur. So this is a way for us to, you know, to collect that information and make sure that it is correctly documented.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
So number two, every pursuit undergoes an extensive review. That is true. If we engage what we deem to be a pursuit, 1043, in our standards, regardless if we catch them or not, because some get away. I mean, we have to terminate pursuits. It gets we have enough to pursue. We can still deem it to be too dangerous as their actions dictate in the street, and we just have to cut them off. Those are tough, but it's a part of the process. Regardless of arrest or apprehension, we do a extensive investigation, and it's pretty comprehensive. I mean, you'll get in the total distance of the pursuit, the top speeds we were in, how long it took, and it's pretty much mapped out in our module, every turn, twist we took, all that good stuff in there. And now we're backed up with WatchGuard video on all of our cars, which has been extremely valuable. Before, you were just having to sort of guess what it looked like. But you're watching the WatchGuard video, you get a true picture of how dangerous it is when you're driving at high speeds, especially when you're watching your offender in front of you who's driving with no rules. We still have to drive with rules, due regard. They get off the hook and can do whatever they want. So we do an extensive investigation on every single one. Now, number three, this is going to trace back to that comment in the public portion of the November 1st meeting. Current policies in place do not allow them to give chase in situations such as this unless it involves a felony. That is false. We will not chase for all felonies. Just because there's a felony attached to it does not mean we're going to go, you know, Dukes and Hazzard on you or anything like that. It could be felony check fraud. We're not going to create a big danger for that to our public either. So that is not the case. Maybe that's a statement our officer made. I have no idea. I couldn't begin to tell you. Maybe you heard something different. But we're not going to chase for all felonies, but there are times that we will chase these motorbikes and ATVs if the situation is in our favor. It's got to be just right for us right now to do these things. And they got to be creating a pretty bad public safety issue for us to get into it. And I'll get into why in just a minute. Number four, ramming, bumping, pushing one vehicle into another, or physically forcing a vehicle off the road or to a stop is prohibited unless the use of deadly force would be authorized. That is true. We do not intentionally run our cars into people. We don't even feign the response of doing that, like fake them out to get them to get a reaction out of them, because that generally causes something bad on their end, and then we have to deal with the result of it. So we don't push, ram, bump, anything like that at all in our policy. Now, can we, if the situation is bad enough, let's say we have someone who's engaging and, you know, trying to kill us, shooting out the window at us, yeah, we might wreck them. That's going to be a situation there's a rare, that's, I guess, your low frequency, high impact crimes. We will do it then. I put in the bullet point below it, the pit maneuver. We are getting ready to go down that road as a police department. We are getting ready to train all our officers, if we can get it set up properly, to learn how to take vehicles off the road in forceful fashion like that when the situation is right. I've always wanted to do this as an officer, not because it seems cool, it's because you need this in your back pocket. If you have a true, motivated, bad offender who is creating havoc in your city and they're running from you, we really have no recourse to stop them. I would want our officers trained versus untrained. Do you agree, Pete? Yes. Now, Pete's done it. I'll let him speak to the pit maneuver.
Can I do a ride along?
Yeah, I want to be there for that
Take
one.
you down there to Sanford and let's do it
sure
with us.
will.
Yeah,
So
I can use that on I-95 sometimes when that car won't get over.
so the pit maneuver, I have been trained in that, and we've done that down in Sanford with some law enforcement partners, and it is very effective. It's not, you know, I think there's a lot of misinformation out about pit, and there's times when it's used incorrectly, but when it is applied correctly, like most things that we do, as long as it's done in those correct parameters, it is safe and it is effective. But that is, inherently, somebody on a motorcycle or somebody on an ATV that doesn't have a roll cage on it, those things aren't something that we're going to pit either way, okay? But the pit is something that for other vehicle pursuits is a great tool in the correct environment and the right circumstances, and it is whenever it's used properly. Yeah.
And that'll be added to our policy later, once we're all trained. We're not there yet. We haven't gone down that road. They're in the process. Our Pete's a driving instructor. That's why he's here with me as well. And we're going to go down that road. I think we need it in our back pocket as a police agency. We have enough, as you can clearly see, we're chasing cars. We got 100 plus that we've documented right now. And I mean, I'm sure there's some where we didn't, our guy failed or girl failed to do a field sheet. Yes, sir?
If you begin a pursuit and it's a serious situation, can you cross outside the city limits?
Yes, as long as we're stay with them. We cannot lose sight of them. That's outlined in our policy as well. And what will allow us to go into other jurisdictions and things like that. Now, there are some pieces of the puzzle that go in there. And we specifically wrote it in our policy not too long ago. I want our communications to start getting on the horn and calling those jurisdictions and telling them, we're coming in your town, city, or county hot. Here's what we have. And I want to know when they're coming in our city too. So I like to, if the other agency asks us to terminate, we'll terminate. But we generally get cooperation. We've had a lot of chases inside the city where they ask us to assist them. And if they don't meet our policy, we try to get as much information from them as they can, then we probably will not engage to an extent. We think the officer's in danger or they're alone or something like that. Yes, we may jump in the fray a little bit as long as we can to make sure the safety aspect for that officer if they're operating solo. But we have a lot of pursuits that do come in the city, and we do our best to make sure they meet our policy. I don't know what their policy says. I know ours, though. So, but yes, we can go into other jurisdictions. Now, when we specifically get to the pursuit of dirt bikes and ATVs, that's what we're here to talk about. Number one, our chances of successful capture, if we do pursue them, slim. Probably none, but slim at best. And I wrote underneath it successful because I underlined it for a reason, because I'm really not sure what success comes with. If we engage in a pursuit with a dirt bike or an ATV, the high speeds and the recklessness that you're going to see as a result of that pursuit is probably nothing compared to the initial violation, which got us there to try to stop them in the first place. Whatever they're doing in the initial stages, multiply that by 10, 20, it only makes it worse. You can go on YouTube, just like I can. I do it all every day at lunch. I'm a loser. I sit there and look at police videos for lunch every day. And I've been watching these over the last couple of weeks because of what we're dealing with. And you see officers in other places chase bikes and ATVs. They're never successful. I haven't seen one get caught yet, actually. And the driving that you see and the danger created to the public is cringing. I mean, I'm sitting there all cringed up too, and I'm like, I'm sitting at home. I'm in my seat here at the office and watching this. So the high speeds and reckless driving, it's only going to be worse. So you got to be prepared for that. Number three, the rider's desired response is for us to pursue them. They want this. They openly say that. You see a lot of videos, including ours. They're waving us on, telling us to come after them, giving us the bird, whatever it may be. And they're trying to entice us into a pursuit. I don't want to give them what they want that creates a greater danger. Again, they're not worried about the public safety aspect of this. We are. Again, they drive with no rules. We drive with rules. So the rider's desired response is for police to pursue them. And they'll openly tell you that. Watch those YouTube videos. They talk. They tell you, here's what we're trying to get into today. See if these cops will fall for it, pretty much. If the chase does come to an end, you can almost best believe it's going to be a crash. I don't think we've had really any that stopped.
No,
I
can think of several examples though where, the person who's riding loses control of the motorcycle, lays it down, they get hurt. Same thing with the ATVs. I personally worked several crashes where ATVs, are in these groups and they hit a motorist coming out of a driveway or something like that. And that's not even involved in any sort of pursuit. That's just them riding and riding dangerously. So the potential is there for them to really get involved in a crash that's really going to hurt somebody. And like Chief said, this is, that analogy I used was just like a moth to a flame. You turn on a light outside and you get moths, right? So when groups of folks that are on ATVs and dirt bikes, they're out there, I'm sure that they're having some fun, but at the end of the day, they're trying to get our attention. It's like a moth to a flame. So they see a marked car, they're going to come towards it, they're going to try to get our attention. They're going to do wheelies and kick at other cars and do sorts of things to try to get us to come after them. I mean, that's their end goal, because they want to get in a pursuit, because to them, that's a lot of fun, right? So that's their goal. And so, we got to work really hard to resist that, giving into that temptation and fulfilling what they want, because we got to be safe for us. and for the city. So that is true. It's really just an enticement for them to get us involved. And there's not going to be a successful outcome unless we can identify who they are and put those puzzle pieces together.
All right, thanks, Pete. Like I said, if it does come in, probably going to be a crash, and number 5 says it. When you have crash, you're going to incur damage in some form or fashion. And the crashes that I'm talking about are not really riders wrecking individually. I'm worried about crashes where they run into our citizens. And that's a very high likelihood, especially when we're doing this on North Main Street. Think of how busy it is at almost all hours. So the crash with one of our citizens is probably going to be the end game that happens with it. None of these bikes are registered. None of them have insurance, nothing like that. So at the end of the day, guess who's paying? The victim. The victim is going to pay for their own damage because of these knuckleheads out here. It's just not worth us doing it. I don't want to get into that game. I don't want to see our people be victimized in that level financially as well. So the law enforcement best practices across the country thing is do not chase. Now, is that an easy pill to swallow for us? No. I mean, I'm a pro-enforcement cop. I have been my whole career. And I don't like it. I don't like watching guys get away from us, especially when they're committing crime so blatantly. But it's tough. You have to swallow that pill sometimes and do what's right for your citizens and stick to your policy. That's why you have a policy. So our action plan, yeah, sorry.
Do we have any accidents to date from this group of people or this habit, these people riding, have we had any incidents or accidents yet?
I'm trying to think on Main Street, have we had any so far? I got our cars.
They have come after, some of the marked police cars, kicking at them, that kind of thing. We've had a couple instances, a couple from the citizens that were here, obviously, where they were involved and had damage to their mirror. And I've taken, calls from other citizens, when I was in the traffic unit, about what to do about the dirt bikes and ATVs, because they'd had some involvement with them several times. And so the damage on the mirror is one I can think of from, I think it was Miss Peel, and then on some of the police cars, but we hadn't had any major crashes with them. The crashes that they've been involved with, I'm not thankful for any crash, but they've been where that didn't involve another citizen, okay? A couple of the ATV crashes have involved, other motorists, but they weren't times when they were being pursued or anything like that. They were riding in a group and they were involved in the crash, so, yeah.
And I do know one, I watched the watch car video on, I told you about it today. I watched one ATV, our police cars coming down the road, just normal patrol. I watch an ATV, no lights or anything, come off the side street, and we cream it. We absolutely crushed that thing. 15-year-old driver, I think. Luckily, I don't know how the kid wasn't injured. He pops right up. The ATV smashed all to pieces. And,
Is that chargeable?
It is. We did charge him on a juvenile petition, but it's still a driving charge. The kids questioned us when we got finished, is who's going to pay for this? I'm not kidding. I listened to it on Watch Guard. It'll make your blood boil. That's the kind of stuff that we're having to deal with out here. So, but yes, we do charge when we get the chance. So we agree this is a problem that we do not plan to ignore it. I told you, we're chomping at the bit to come after and do something with it. My fear is this. Now, we had it hot and heavy during the warmer weather. It has since lulled quite a bit. We've almost gone to a zero, which is normal. This happens every single year. It ebbs and flows depending on the weather. We think the cold weather is going to help us for a while. Pete and I were talking today. It's going to buy us time because there are several pieces of this puzzle that we're going to have to pick off and get some things in place for it to be successful. My fear, though, is we want to take action because it's not going to be long for one of our citizens takes it in their own hands. We're getting a pretty good number of calls to us. I'm sure everybody else in the room does too. People are fed up with this stuff. And it won't be long before somebody says, I'm going to do something about it. And then we'll have to deal with the fallout from that as a police department, as a city. Our plan is going to have to be mapped out, well organized. There's many pieces to this puzzle. I've reviewed it. Pete and those guys put it together. It's a good plan. It's got multi-phases in it. The results are, we're not going to be able to throw down like the traffic surge is coming up next week. We'll be able to throw down results on that in a matter of 3 days. It'll be very impressive. This will not be the same. It's going to take us time to pick these things off. I will be having a conversation personally with the district attorney for cases on prosecution. The issue we have with this is anything that we can charge is pretty much going to be a motor vehicle violation. There are no criminal charges that come out of it like Chapter 14 and anything like that. It's all Chapter 20. Chapter 20 is very easy to ignore when it comes to court. So you just see, hey, this, or this, let's do this, slap on the wrist, and we keep moving. So I will get some commitment from the DA's office that I have to explain the problem first, and we need to take this seriously. So when you see these cases come up in front of you, and we flag them, we need you to do all you can to help us out in the end. Now, city government's going to need to be on the same page with the response too. That's a big piece of the puzzle, because if this plan goes, and we're not going to talk about the plan. It'll bust the thing left and right. It's like us telling you, hey, we're going to do a search warrant over here tomorrow. That just causes safety issues, and the plan's no good from that point forward. So we will not get into the details of the plan today, but yes, there is a plan in place. And once this does go, we'll need to be on the same page as a city, because we're going to arrest some people. We're going to seize quite a bit of property. We've got to figure out where to store it, but we're going to seize quite a bit of property. Some feathers are going to get ruffled. I'm going to get phone calls. You guys are going to get phone calls, and it's going to be, you know, hey, my kid makes straight A's in the 4th grade, and he plays soccer, and y'all can't do this, and blah, 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 and I'm not listening to any of that stuff. I'm just not going to. You got to be prepared for it, too, because it's coming at you guys as well.
Question about, I guess, the exposure for our citizens. Like, I know I ride my Harley, and, you know, I've got lights and everything to try to announce my presence on the road, and so hopefully somebody doesn't come over in the lane and knock me out of the road, which is almost happened a few times in my years of riding. But, you know, if I'm legally driving my car and one of these vehicles is in my blind spot without any of that legal equipment, and I go to switch lanes and, you know, that person's injured or dead or whatever, I mean, you know, what's the exposure to me or any citizen that could also be, you know, in that situation?
I think you got a lot of things in your favor, but I never want to comment on the system because it is so unpredictable now. Pete, Pete,
Yeah.
you've done 1,000 more wrecks than I have.
Sure. Maybe 2,000 more. So,
That's not a lot, by 2,000.
so absolutely, yeah, these ATVs and the dirt bikes in particular are not registered. They're not registered, so they're not insured. They're not obeying the traffic laws. And, you know, they are riding up next to people and doing these things. I've taken calls from people where that exact same scenario has happened, and they've almost run them off the road. So, you know, if the driver, you know, the victim driver is doing everything correctly, you know, when we come out, if that turns into a crash and we come out and investigate that, then, you know, obviously, Chapter 20, which is a motor vehicle law chapter, you know, all those things are going to be on the side of the vehicle operator who is obeying the law. And I think we're pretty good at finding those facts and putting that forth. I think probably the unknown realm is, you know, you always get into this whole civil side, which, you know, we particularly don't deal with. But, you know, from a criminal standpoint, from a police investigation standpoint, if something like that were to occur, you know, ultimately I can't tell you what the court's going to decide, but on the scene, we're pretty good at determining, okay, well, this driver was doing what they're supposed to be doing, and you know, as far as we're concerned, they're okay. They're doing what they're supposed to do, and the rider or operator of this ATV or dirt bike, you know, that's who's at fault. So that's kind of where we come down on that.
The two negatives, though, with that situation, though, are this. Number one, you have to survive the incident from a physical standpoint first. I mean, damage to property is one thing, but you're going to have to survive as a rider, number one, even if you're doing everything right. So there's probably a lot that goes with that. And then on the backside, you're still paying. I don't care if we charge the other guy with every offense we can come up with. At the end of the day, no matter how it's adjudicated in court, you're probably not going to see a dime.
Oh, yeah.
I have listened to many times we sat in district court and we listened to judges say, you know, this offender, you're going to pay this. And I'm like, you'll never see a dime of that. Not going to happen. You know, well, I don't say that out loud, but I'm shaking my head going, no, that's not going to happen, dude. So that's the issues that we see in there. And that's why I think this is enough for us to do a problem about it. But we do something about this problem. But it's really a societal issue, too, that there are groups that allow this. They think it's cool. It's awesome. Again, go on YouTube. The Bike Life, I think that's what it's called. It's all over. Bike Life.
Bike Life.
They've made Netflix shows over this. And we're talking about what, maybe 1, 2, 5, 10, 15 vehicles. In the bigger cities, we're talking about groups of hundreds driving around. You think that'll jam your city up pretty good? Yes, it will. I know our guys and girls, we assisted A&T with their homecoming 2 weekends ago. The folks that worked over this, they had about 100, 150 driving around in the city of Greensboro doing this. So it'll jam you up pretty good. It's just become socially acceptable in many circles that this is okay. We can do this. We're just having fun. We're expressing ourselves. But it's at the detriment to the rest of the public, and it's illegal. It's the bottom line. So we do plan to do something about it. More to come. Hopefully, we'll get a lull to give us a break from dealing with it for a little bit. We make sure we get our plan set, and that's something I'll still have to review with the city manager. I promised her I'd do that before we jumped it into play. I want her to know exactly what we're going to do and the course that it's going to take, because there's several pieces of the puzzle in this deal. Any questions? Anything else? I know that's short and sweet.
The plan that you mentioned, is that in the next 6 months, 12 months?
We'll be ready to enact it. I don't think it's ready yet, in my opinion. It's not ready. There's several conversations got to have happen. You know, if we seize, the plan is we're going to seize bikes. I don't mind saying that part. That's not a secret. We get hold of them, we're not giving them back. We got to figure out a place to store them. We don't have the capabilities to do that right now. I mean, I'm not sure where, if we took more than one or two, where we would chain that thing up and keep it secure, because it's going to take several months to get through the adjudication process. And then it has to be turned over, and you got to get rid of it and all that stuff. It's a long thing when we seize property. So there's some things that we've got to put in place. I want to be ready day one when we take this. I don't want to take 10 bikes and just be sitting there going, what do we do now? That's not where we want to be as a city.
But our response to our constituents can be that we do have our police department does have a plan in place, and we feel that that plan will be initiated within the next few months.
It can. Well, a lot of it's depending on the activity that we get to.
Right.
The activity will drive our action. Now, if we come out tonight and we're hot and heavy on it, then we're probably going to bump up the timeline on the plan. But if we're able to buy us a couple of weeks, cold weather, whatever else,
Right.
then we may be able to push it off just a little bit. We got plenty going on. This is just one piece of our puzzle, is the ATVs and dirt bikes. There's plenty of other action for our limited number of people that we have. But I do think this is important. So yes, you can tell your citizens that call you, yeah, they're going to do something about it.
And that was the main reason I wanted you here today, and, you know, Pat's here. I mean, obviously, this is to let them know that, one, we are aware, you know, get some clarification on what our options are, and outside of just these options, to hear from you, which
Yeah.
is reassuring that there is a plan in place. And I don't want to know details, you know, but just that's encouraging to know that hopefully they'll see some resolve, some deterrence within the next coming months.
And we won't hide the results either. That is part of the plan. We have a media position on this. It's one of the phases that we are going to blast out. I think that's what we need to do for our citizens, is be transparent. I want to show them this is what your police department is doing, you know, success or failure. We plan to show the results. Any other questions?
And for you, Brett?
All right. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Chief. I
You got it.
appreciate your
Thank you.
time. If there's no other business to come before this committee, I will adjourn.